Hey guys, hello, and welcome to episode 20 of Conversations on India with Panda and Vyas. Today we're going to discuss India's water security issue. It's a huge issue which is going to become even more lethal going forward in the future. So we're going to discuss that. And right now we're just going to wait for Panda to join, and then we'll get started. Hey, hi Saurabh. So Panda is here.
All right. Hello, yo, bro.
हेलो
How are you
सर
doing?
बढ़िया भाई
Badaya. Awesome, awesome. So, वो बुलाने की, but people are not coming on.
हेलो या
So, ठीक है, then let's get started. We're recording this at 2:50 p.m. on 8th of April, 2021. So, Panda, would you like to go first, or do you want me to start?
yes I'll take up that topic.
Sure.
Basically this is the topic of recent attacks, the Naxal attacks in the Chhattisgarh region. I suppose it was
Mm-hmm.
Bastar district, Bastar region, on the CRPF Jawans, where 22 of the Jawans were killed in action, or they were
Yeah.
martyred, and one of them has been taken away alive, and his images are have been going the rounds in on online social media. So
Mm-hmm.
this is an issue pertaining to what is left wing extremism, why there is this rise in left wing extremism, and despite the number of cases suddenly dropping down in past number of years, why such incidents reoccur, and so we'll be just talking about the issues of this, what causes left wing extremism, and what are the ways to tackle the left wing extremism or the Maoist action. Right. So, why don't you start by defining what it is and what do you feel are the issues? Then I'll chip in.
Sure. So, Naxalism is a problem which is seen in the remotest parts of India, where sort of the welfare state has not reached yet. We find that it has taken hold in a lot of states in the northeast, as well as the chief region where Naxalism in India takes effect is in the southern part of Chhattisgarh, because that still remains a very remote area, and it has historically been ignored from the political process, and people there don't really feel a part of the larger country, and still believe in their tribal loyalties to each other. And it's basically the development that has not reached those people yet, which has made them completely become disaffected with the Indian state, and which has made it like a fertile ground for Maoist action to come in and to talk about regime change and state change, as is a very key feature of Maoism, and that's the thing. So this can also be connected to the larger geopolitical picture, because Maoism in India generally flares up when India starts having problems with China. So this is basically an insurgency tactic which can have foreign funding routes as well. But this one, I don't think it has so much to do with the foreign funding angle. It's more the tribals just getting a consciousness of their own, and attacking the symbol of state that they see, which is the police forces or the CRPF jawans who are posted there. And the kind of violence we see are these tribal, surprise attacks. Uh, there is a specific term I'm missing, but yeah,
Guerrilla warfare.
those kind, yeah, basically guerrilla warfare. And the Maoists, they function out of stolen weapons. So basically, the police forces that went in there with their weapons, they ambushed them and killed them all and took their weapons. And basically, those will be the weapons that will be recycled later on to conduct some kind of violent trades, or to train their own cadre of people who can fight for them. So this left wing extremism can very really be connected with development, and the least developed parts of the country are where it takes root. And there has been a great government push. In fact, the number of cases since 2009, in the 10-year period since 2009, have been reduced by 50%. So half the number of cases, half the number of deaths. So there has been some good work that has been done in this area, and but it will still take time because these areas have been ignored historically, and these were some of the areas even during the British times when tribal revolts used to occur. They used to start from these areas, or like these areas which were like completely out of control. Historically going back 100 200 years as well. So right now in 2021, it's a shame that basic amenities like good roads, electricity, sanitation, water, these things have not reached these far remote places. And as such, this awakening of the tribal consciousness is quite understandable if you look at it in that frame.
Right. Okay. Just putting things into perspective, I'll just give some data points. So,
Mhm,
according to the official Ministry of Home Affairs data, 90 districts in India out of 780 plus districts are affected by left-wing extremism. The major affected states are Chhattisgarh, as you have rightly mentioned, and the neighboring states of Jharkhand and bit of Odisha.
mhm,
This was also a menace in Andhra Pradesh, but the Greyhound forces that were specially, made to tackle this did a commendable job, and they were successful in removing these extremism from the states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. The left-wing extremism, it has also tried to find new offshoots in places such as Western Ghats and on the tri-junction of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Chhattisgarh, but largely it has failed to do so. Right. The reasons that you have mentioned are right. The underdeveloped regions, basically. So the people there are generally illiterate, and they are finding it hard to live. So what they do is they ambush any symbol of state that they find, and they think that it is oppressing, and it is due to the state that they are in the present situation, that state has not done enough for them. So this is the current scenario. Now, talking about the initiatives that I feel should be taken for this. Number one is rehabilitation and development. The number one priority that I think so is this. You know, once you isolate the few, not every tribal, I would say, and I would also not point it out tribals. I would just say villagers. Not every villager is a Maoist. Only select few are the ones that are creating such sort of havoc. So
mhm,
isolating them from the rest of villagers by giving jobs, better rehabilitation activities that was started by the Ministry of Home Affairs is a way forward, right? Apart from that, the second thing that I feel needs to be done is that to tackle forces such as Maoist that are specialized in guerrilla warfare, you need our forces that are also specialized in the same warfare. You cannot expect a force of 100 to storm in a jungle and get something, and that is where this incident took place. They were returning in the evening after receiving information, and that information was also actually misfed by the Maoist to them. There was an
mhm,
communication interception that was received, and taking the lead, they went forward to investigate. And while returning, they were ambushed by this. So I think so. Along with this guerrilla warfare, there needs to be an improved and enhanced strategies about not only communication skills but also aerial visuals using drones. Because during this time of season, the regions of Bastar and the forest usually shed their leaves. So it makes a drone as a viable option. So they could have done that, but having said that, they can also take, I would say, uh, points from the Greyhound forces that was formed for Andhra Pradesh, as it has already trained multiple forces. And basically, the Greyhound forces were the localites who were who already excelled in the warfare, guerrilla warfare, and a force was created, and they can do this. And also the rehabilitated Maoist can be used against the Maoists that have been creating havoc. So these are few steps. Apart from these steps, I would like to say that the center state cooperation, and which is a good thing that is being seen in this case, that they are not playing blame games, basically, because the government in Chhattisgarh and the government in center is not same. But hopefully they're not playing blame games, and the forces to tackle these left wing extremism are deployed from both the center and the state. And apart from that, some special forces, some regional forces are also deployed. So they need to work in tandem, and this is a long drawn process. It requires patience for the development to reach the rural parts. It takes time. I would say that if an initiative for development is started today, it would take at least 10 to 15 years for the development process to be seen at the ground root level. So
Hmm.
it is a long drawn process, but we cannot just wait for that process to yield result, right? So I think so. Along with patience, we need tactical skills enhancement, and apart from that, desertification of these Maoists from their groups by giving better incentives to villagers are few steps that I would also like to chip in from my side. Would you like to add any
Yeah.
more step that you find suitable?
Yeah. So there is one more thing, which is especially troubling with the Maoists, which does not happen with the other tribes, which the Indian state has tried to bring into its fold. So, for example, there was this struggle in Bodoland, which is the region in northwestern Assam, right? So they had created the North, I think the Bodoland Front for Democracy or something like that. But they were carrying arms, and it was easier to woo them into the state fold by promising them some kind of stipend in exchange for arms. So if they give up arms and promise to join in the society, not only will they be given training to get some employment, but also they will be given a monthly stipend by the state for giving up the armed rebellion. So, but here with the Maoist, the problem is a little more philosophical, because the Maoist communism, one of the core beliefs of the philosophy is that they want regime change. They want completely, removing the current regime and putting themselves in power and putting the Maoist system basically as in charge of the place. So, but that is where an ideological difference comes in, which does not happen with normal tribes. So, for example, the Bodos, right? They were much easier to convince, and they were much easier to promise them some sort of control, legislative control over their area, and some restricted entry laws. Some kind of common property rights. So all of these things which the state can negotiate with the tribal leaders or whatever their political association is. So these can be negotiated, but with the Maoists it becomes a little difficult, because their sources of funding are not clear. So it's not like they are existing by doing some kind of business in India. They're basically being funded to do these operations. So they don't really care about coming at peace with the Indian government. And secondly, they have this philosophical problem that they can't coexist with the Indian state. Even if the other party is tolerant of Maoism, Maoism is not tolerant of other political ideologies. So that is a problem with this area, and the worst affected are the tribal people, who do not get development and do not get any kind of remedy from this wretched philosophy that they have gotten themselves into.
Right.
So, well, somebody needs to come up with a very wise solution, which is escaping me now. But it is definitely a problem that the Indian state has been dealing with for over 10 years. In fact, longer, quite longer now. And this is like a horrific incident. Hopefully, nothing like this happens in the future. And
Right. And just picking up your points of borderland, Northeast states are, as you have rightly mentioned, because this is the name itself suggests it is extremism. So they are totally extreme to, or they are not open to options. The government has tried its best to break off portions or to rehabilitate person, because uh, that is one way that they can do forward. The second thing is, the funding needs to be taken into account that from where they are receiving funding. But in the recent attack, as the visuals later showed, that they had looted all the automatic guns, the armories, and even the boots of the police personnel. So that is one thing which will be used in the next attack. So
yeah.
this is one thing, and I think so. The ministries in the central and the state should also work together in tandem with themselves. Such as if there is a road construction going on or hospital construction, so it should be supported by the Ministry of Personnel and Ministry of Home Affairs to provide forces for the safety of those workers that are working in the road construction sector. So I think so
Hmm.
that is one way forward. And the last point that I can think of apart from solution is interstate cooperation is also needed, because these states are connected by jungles. They're not the boundaries are not demarcated as such, so they can move freely. So these interstate cooperation, interstate working of ministries, along with proper rehabilitation plans, uh, patience and tactics at the same time. So I think so these are some of the ways that needs to be taken into account. And the foremost way that I can think forward is creating more forces such as greyhound forces that specialize in their way of warfare and use it against them to tackle the ones that are not that are adamant to change. So I think so. This is what I feel.
All right, awesome. So I think that was a very wide coverage of the topic. And with that, let's move on to the next one. So next, I want to bring up the problem of water security in India. So I will just start by setting the context, and I'll be borrowing facts from this very nice article written by Suresh Prabhu in the latest edition of Yojana magazine. So basically, this guy was the person in charge for the river interlinking project, which was taken up earlier. And later on, he was also involved in the Jal Jeevan mission. So he has quite an inside view of the government efforts that are going on in the water security area, and he has also very nicely covered the issue. What are the wider points? Why there is a fundamental gap between the demand and the supply of water, and sort of what are the things that we can do to change that. So, but first of all, he starts by saying that the Indian population is likely to peak at 1.6 billion in 2050. So, right now we have still not hit the peak. The peak will come in 2050, which will be at 1.6 billion. So, we are quite close. We are 80% of the way there to our peak, and after that, models suggest that the total population is going to go down. Now it is saying that even though we have 16% of the world's population, we only have 4% of the world's water, and out of that, only 1% is actually utilizable for agriculture or for technical purposes. The rest either like flows back into the sea or gets wasted in other ways. So but the amount of utilizable fresh water is quite low in India, and 21 major cities in India are already facing zero groundwater problem. So in 2020 itself, there are 21 cities, including Delhi, Bengaluru, Chennai, Hyderabad, and others also, which have zero groundwater. So they have basically exhausted all their supplies under them, and now they're dependent on water from other places. And also, the by 2030, the country's total projected demand will be twice the total supply. So basically, in less than 10 years, we will have double the amount of water required than what is available. And this is likely to cause like a 6% loss in our GDP. So all of these are quite, surprising and shocking facts. And if the demand and supply gap is so high, then we can also expect to pay quite a lot of money for securing water, and that is where the 6% GDP loss comes in. So it is basically a loss of efficiency, which will cause total, on a wider level, it will cause the GDP to degrade, and in general, it will make economic processes more, it will make them more difficult. And also, this will be my last point before I invite your views. So, if we consider the states, right? So, there are this composite water index scores. So composite water index is Niti Aayog's index about the water level of a state. So in high performance, there are actually only three states in India right now, which are Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Andhra Pradesh. And in medium performance, there is Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Maharashtra, Telangana, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu, and everything else is in low performance. So the whole of northern plains of India is actually performing very low when it comes to conserving water, or when it comes to water safe uh, practices. So there is a huge gap between what the demand and the supply is going to be. So but there are many plans which the government has implemented. Let's not get into those. But I would like your views on the problem, and like if you have any particular suggestions or something.
Right, right. Just a few points that I would like to add apart from this. As rightly, you have mentioned that that was a report by UNESCO, uh, State of World Water Development Report, that stated that
Mhm.
21 major cities were expected. Basically, there are few issues that I would like to point out with the water usage in India. In
Yeah.
India, as you have rightly mentioned, out of the 4% available, only 1% is available for use, the fresh water that is available for use. And from the 1% that is available for use, the groundwater extraction takes about 70 to 80% of the fresh water that is available. So the
Mhm.
agriculture sector itself takes away 70% of the water that is available, and the rest that is
Right.
left, the 30%, that is sent to households and industries. So this is one thing that needs to be taken care of. The second thing is the cropping pattern. Now in this agriculture sector, the cropping pattern is another issue. You know, so that is a separate topic in itself. But this has a lot to do with itself. The states that are rich in water rainfall, such as the northeastern states or the coastal regions, basically they do not grow that much water intensive crops as compared to the states that are deficient in water, such as Punjab and Haryana. They grow more water uh, intensive crops such as sugarcane and rice, which is not suited for their topography. Again, the government lacunas of MSPs and stuff like that. Right. Apart
Yeah.
from that, I would like to mention there's this concept of virtual water. So basically, what virtual water is the water that has been used to make a commodity, to produce a commodity. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
say India uses 5,000 liters to produce 1 kg of rice. So that 1 kg
Mm-hmm.
of rice in Indian context is 5,000 liters. For China, that is
Bilkul.
300 liters. That is something different. China is
Yeah.
more efficient. But just giving an example. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
producing a T-shirt, so say this T-shirt is 200 liters of water. So this is what virtual water means. Putting every commodity in terms of water, right? So India is the
Yeah.
next net exporter of virtual water. Mainly on the account of agriculture produce, which it is doing very inefficiently.
And
So
mainly on the account of rice and sugarcane, because
mainly on the
sugarcane
account
is
of
also,
sugarcane and rice. These both are
yeah.
water guzzlers, the sugarcane and the rice. The Maharashtra droughts basically are have a reason, a root every year in the sugarcane production. So these are the two things that India needs to look into. And also the thing that India is presently lacking is the rainwater harvesting. According to a
Yeah.
survey, I could not find it, but I had read it, that India only harvests 8% of the rainwater that is available in the Indian mainland, whereas the Indian requirement of fresh water per year is 1400. Now there was this term, I don't know 1400 what, while the rainfall is about 1800 of that same quantity. So if India manages to harvest, I would say, only 80% of what total rainfall that we get, it is sufficient to sustain the needs of the Indian subcontinent. So these are the steps that I think are the major things that are leading us away towards this water insecurity. The unsustainable use of water, especially by the agriculture sector, the virtual water trade that no one looks into account, which is an option that is going in rounds presently. And apart from that, the improper techniques that we have for the rainwater harvesting, the recycling and conservation of water. Right.
या सो इसके अंदर मेरा बस एक ही पॉइंट है कि द प्रॉब्लम इज एक्चुअली सो लार्ज कि स्टेट नो मैटर हाउ मच इट ट्राइज इट कैन ओनली डू सो मच मतलब कि स्टेट के पास भी लिमिटेड कैपेसिटी है टू एक्ट एंड वी कैन नॉट एक्सपेक्ट कि गवर्नमेंट ही हमारी वाटर सिक्योरिटी की प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करेगी बिकॉज द गैप इज वे टू वाइड our demand is too high for our supply sources to match no matter how efficient we make our systems on a wider level there will be such high demand that no sane government can meet it. So the responsibility then falls on the citizens to actually save as much water as they are using. So whatever demand that you place on the system for water, as much water you should be able to replenish from your own sources. So for example, if you have a house, you can put together some sort of rainwater harvesting system which at least harvests as much water as is needed for the household use. And if such a policy can be adopted by the people of India, then only we can tackle such a great problem. Otherwise, but we are only seeing this right now in Chennai, where trains of water are being sent
Right.
from other places. But this problem will come up in all these other 21 mega cities that I just mentioned, because all of these places have no groundwater, and when the drought finally strikes, a lot of people will go thirsty, and to give them water, to get water, they'll be able to pay a lot. And when you are able to pay a lot, the system is such, the capitalist system, that it gets you the water from somewhere, and it will be trains burning oil to get you water from one place to the other, and that will be the solution that humanity can conjure up for water. So we do not want that future, and uh, to save us from getting to that point, we need to take on sustainable water practices at the household level, because as is rightly said, charity begins at home. So we must all take this thing with us, that we want to protect as much water as we can, and also try to earn it back from the rains that the gods give us. And besides this, I had a couple more points about the schemes that are ongoing. So,
Right.
one, we know that Sustainable Development Goal number 6 says that clean water and sanitation for all people. But it is part of what we have already committed for 2030. Then Namami Gange, which was the flagship program brought by the NDA government in 2014, it had an outlay of 20,000 crores, and it did some public work in and around Ganga, trying to make it pure, and trying to restabilize the river. Uh, then there was a National Framework Water Bill of 2016, which was like the landmark legislation upon which later schemes were built. Then there is a Jal Jeevan Mission, which aims to get all rural households tap connections.
Tab-
And this scheme has also been expanded to all urban households by the latest budget. So this year's budget says that we'll get it to urban areas as well. And earlier Jal Jeevan Mission had said in 2019 only कि we'll get it to all rural households. Then there's the Atal Bhujal Yojana, which is a partnership between the government and the World Bank, 50-50%, both of them are funding. And this is for the worst affected 8 states. They're going to construct some water resources based on water conservation. So these can be like underground water tanks to replenish groundwater, or they are taking a different approach. So you can read about Atal Bhujal. Let's not get into that. And then there was the landmark river interlinking project, where they were trying to link up 14 rivers in the Deccan and 16 rivers in the Himalayan river system. So there the idea is that some of these rivers sometimes overflow, and they cause a lot of damage due to floods and so on. So something can be done where rivers are interlinked, and whenever the load on one river increases, it just redistributes the water to the other rivers. So in that way we convert a mishap into something which is advantageous to us, which helps us conserve more water, use more water, and we also avoid the flood. So this was the whole plan of the interlinking of rivers project, and there has been huge investment made. Right now, I don't think any, like, some of them are active, but the full fruits of that project have not come ripe yet. But at least there was good thinking involved there, and there are a couple of other schemes which are still in the very nascent stage. So let's see how they develop. But this is the in broad terms, this is the effort of the government when it comes to water security.
Right. No, as you have rightly mentioned, water is such a huge problem. You cannot tackle it without a multidimensional approach, and without people, it is impossible. So, and talking about Chennai, just a fun fact that Chennai had made it compulsory. In fact, Tamil Nadu government had made it compulsory for rainwater harvesting in the state of Tamil Nadu, and still Chennai is facing such issues. So then, this is the demand and supply mismatch that is creating such issues, and also these cities, basically the Bangalore, be it Delhi, the population density is very high,
Yeah.
so this is one issue. And the best point about the Atal Bhujal Yojana that you have mentioned is that it takes into account the local communities, and with the help of local communities it is trying to build that system. So once when you work from the ground level, you create awareness among the people about the importance of water, and that is the point that you again reiterated, that charity begins at home. So if
Mhm.
we generate this awareness right from our schooling, about this water. We are often told कि ऐसे jal hi jeevan hai and stuff like that. But the problem that I think so lies is that practical applications or videos should also be shown about the regions that are suffering from water lackness, to people that the children, young children, because their mind is fresh, and that can be targeted very easily. So this is again, water is such a big issue. Now, talking about water security, we can even talk about clean water availability. The death from diarrhea in India amounts to about 1,02,000 per year. simple ORS solution and pure water can save it. So these are a few things. Since water is interconnected, it has an impact on your education, because if you get ill, you're not able to do that. Multiple sector, food security. So this is one issue that needs to be tackled, and I think so. In my list of priorities, if I get a chance to serve in any region or any uh, way, water security, I would say, would be among the top two things that I would look forward to. Right?
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah, that is the kind of commitment we need to tackle such a big problem. And with that, let's close this topic for now. But I expect a lot of things to happen in this area because water is one of the biggest problems that India is going to face in the first part of the 21st century. So, and with that, let's change the topic. Let's move on to the next one. Do you have something or should
Right.
I
Yeah.
bring up?
I have two topics. I would take up this one first. So basically,
Hmm.
this is a topic of women-led development.
Okay.
That we have seen that women contribute to about 49% or say 50%, close to 50% of workforce. Yet their
Hmm.
participation in our GDP is very low, just on the account of their non-participation in the workforce. Or should I reiterate it in a better way? On the account of men not allowing them to participate in workforce, right?
Hmm.
So this is one fact, and there are 48% of women that are enrolled in higher education institutions, right? But only 23%, less than a quarter of labor workforce, women constitute the labor workforce. So now this topic that I'll be discussing about is about the women-led uh, development, how women can lead the way, and what are the ways that need to be taken up right from the beginning, from the school level onwards, to motivate women, and how can we men help in this process of women-led development. So why don't you tell me?
Um, Yeah, but I think if we look at the thrust of history, right, in the direction in which it is going. So right now, in the primary schooling, the number of girls in school actually exceeds the number of boys in school.
Right.
And in fact, girls have an enrollment ratio of over 100. So more girls are actually in classes 1 to 5 than there are girls of that age in India. So I think there has been an intense focus on primary education for the girl child, and a lot has been done even from the state side uh, when it's making it free and providing benefits to girls who want to go for higher studies or who want to go to college. They're providing scholarship and so on. So these are some of the generic or basic things that we can suggest. Ki there should be more of scholarships, या फिर there should be more of schools which focus on girls, and there should be more awareness which should be created among parents of girl child, and trying to get them educated and trying to develop their human capital. So all of these points are of course there, and the situation is going to improve slowly because right now we see that most of our work happens in the informal sector, and that too, a lot of the work is still being done physically. There is not such a great requirement for knowledge work in the wide market right now, and that is why actually you don't see as many women participating in that kind of work. But if you go to knowledge work, or if you go to work where sitting in the office and working on some files and working on a laptop is required, there the participation of women is higher, and it's expected to increase, as you were mentioning that there are 48% women in India's higher education institutes. So those are the women who are going to participate in the labor force as well when the time comes. And since we are developing their human capital, it is of great help. Now, all of this makes it sound like the situation is good and no changes are required, but that is not true. Changes are required, and especially in the sector of accounting for women's work, when that work is actually just household work. Because culturally, that is what a lot of women in India are doing, and if that goes unnoticed, then we are basically not accounting for a very important part of the society or contributing greatly to whatever we are doing. So there needs to be a mechanism to account for that, and there needs to be a way where the society at large, like socially, we can recognize that contribution and celebrate that contribution, because a lot of women are involved there. And as is for the knowledge work that is coming up, I expect more and more women to get involved there, because yeah, I mean, in the schooling or education part, it is very fair to assume that girls have overtaken what boys can do, and they have actually outdone boys in almost all the fields which do not require any kind of physical action. So that is why I expect the thrust to go on in the knowledge work. When it comes to the blue collar, hard labor kind of work, that kind of work is now going away, and it is submitting to automation and robots coming in. So we can expect to see less and less labor demand in the world. So I don't expect women to get into that kind of work, but I definitely am expecting some changes in the knowledge work demographic, and also on how we account for the contribution that women actually make.
Right. So basically, taking your point, just contradicting your point, in
Mhm.
the rural workforce, the percentage of women is higher than men, and the type of
Okay.
work that is done in rural households, in fact, in rural areas as whole, is
Mhm.
mainly agrarian, and that is basically the blue collar work, the physical labor.
Right.
So I think so. Women have over time proved their merit in that field. But apart from that, it is right. Women are physically different from men, and owing to this physical difference, they're also emotionally and mentally different from men. It has been found, and it is generally accepted, and I think so. Even you will agree to it that women are more efficient than men when it comes to working and taking decisions. Be it utilization of money or stuff like that. Right. Now, having said that, I think so. We as a men and as a society as a whole, that the steps that can be taken are the first thing is uh, inculcating this habit from the very beginning, from the school level itself. Often the men and boys are always asked that what do you want to become in life, and these are very small things. But I think so. Replicating the same for women will motivate them. Right. Haryana
Mhm.
has taken a step forward in this budget and has announced free education for women till class 12th. So I think so that is another good step, because after the free education till class 8 was uh, over, that was under the right to education, the dropout rates increase for the girl child. You know, because parent then do not favor to spend money on their education, especially in the rural households, especially in regions of Haryana, where the sex ratio is also not very favorable for men. This is one point. Second thing is, and I would like this to be written in the description of this video. So Zomato has announced paid leave, but Bihar since 1992 has been giving 2 days of menstrual leave to women every month to government jobs. So this should be pointed out. Matlab, we have a stigma for states like Bihar and Uttar Pradesh and the safety of women, but I think so. This is a very good step, and this needs to be brought forward. And it's still it's since 1992, whereas
Mhm.
the private organizations like Zomato are taking a lead forward in the 21st century, where other states, even including Delhi, haven't done such. Right. So this is one thing, and a conversation on gender parity needs to happen, and it needs to take men into account. Men as husbands, men as brothers, men as friends, peers, colleagues, bosses, and and how we can enable a better environment for the women to play their part freely. So I think so. These are some ways that are needed. And the last point, and I would again reiterate whenever there is this discussion on women, that women education is very important, because if you educate a woman, she will make sure that her next generation is educated. Be it a girl or boy. So these are the
Mhm.
steps that should be taken, right? And compensating for this blue collar jobs, as you rightly mentioned, there's a rise in white collar jobs. But women, as their physiology is different, it does not allow them to work for 12 hours or plus a day. So that needs to be taken into account. And with this COVID era, the work from home era, basically the number of women participating has risen. So it shows that if favorable policies are made for freely allowing women to take their part and providing opportunities that suit to their physiology, more number of women can chip in better, because it's 50% of a population and 48% in higher education institutes. So if they chip in, naturally our GDP will uh, grow at a very fast rate and in a very effective and efficient way, owing to the consumption and
Definitely, and that is a point that needs to be stressed, because this is something that I also deeply believe, that women are more efficient than men. And also, one more point that you brought up is that another lack in our society is the sensitization of men towards the contribution of women. So that also needs a wider check, and I'm not sure what sort of remedies or solution that you can bring to tackle this problem. But it is a problem which exists, that a lot of men are basically unaware, or they're dismissive of the
ignorant.
contribution, ignorant basically of what women are doing. So that needs to change, and that will bring in the shift, which will also entail like equality of opportunity and equality in other facets as well. So this is something that India definitely needs to work on, because if you look at the gender gap index, right, then India does not perform well on it as well. So culturally, it is as if our civilization has been a little bit behind the Europeans, or the even the communists and the socialists in this aspect, because there is equal treatment of women in basically all aspects by rule, which in some way can be like more progressive than the system that we have here. So these are some things which are historical in nature, and they have evolved over time. And there is less intelligent design that is going on. Like, nobody designed this system to be such, but it has evolved over time, with the constraints of the society and the culture that we are in. So it needs to be looked at in that light, and any kind of reforms need to take into account like what kind of belief system our society already holds. So while we can be very enamored with what goes on in the West and the socialistic ideal of equality, we need to make sure that when we import it, it has enough backing, or enough support from the local people as well. Because if they don't accept it as an idea, then it will fail to take root and fail to cause real change. So we need to take that into account when we bring in any kind of legislation or reforms in this area. And with that, I think we can close this topic as well. If you don't
just
have
just
any last
just
thought.
just a point that I would
Yeah.
like to add, just a case study.
Mhm.
Finland is amongst the happiest nations in the world, gender parity and everything. But I think so there was this revolution in 1976 where all the women went on a strike for equal rights, and they refused to do any work, including the household work. And within 4 years, means they accepted they recognized the contribution. Within 4 years, uh, the percentage of women working had crossed the one of men working, and today it is one of the most efficient and happiest nations. So just pointing out. So that is one thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. There was also this other case study about a bank in Bangladesh which gave microcredit to women, and basically it helped set up all these micro entrepreneurship opportunities for women, and the the performance rate of those loans was really high. So hardly it ever happened that the loan was not returned by the person whom they gave out the loan to. And if one woman got that loan, she enabled five other people around her to get employed or to produce economic goods for the society. And she also helped other women become aware that such an opportunity exists. And then those women came in and took the loans and built their own little economic enterprise. So all of these are great case studies, and people have solved problems before. So we need to take good ideas where they're available, and bring them into the Indian society as well.
Right.
All right. So, with that, let's close this topic. And the next one I wanted to talk about is the vaccine strategy amid the second wave of coronavirus that's going on. So, I mean, we don't need to give you any perspective. Already, you know that the second wave is going strong, and many people are predicting that it will be a lot worse than the first wave. Delhi and Maharashtra have already imposed night curfews, and right now, the situation is such that an economic lockdown of the scale, which was employed the first time, cannot be used now. Because right now, the damage will be too much and it will be too hard to come back from. So, the tools in terms of controlling the spread of the virus that the state has are a lot limited. And this comes when five of our states are going into elections. And the virus is increasing in basically all of those areas, and it is basically grim prospects for the country. And there was talk of India becoming the vaccine manufacturer of the world. But right now, the vaccine manufacturing capacity of India is less than 100 million doses per month, and those doses India can basically deploy in one day right now. So our capacity to deploy and our capacity to manufacture have a large gap of 1 is to 30, which then means that the health department needs to take up a policy of who needs the vaccine more than the other person, and that's how they need to apportion the vaccine. So this, I think, the bill of this problem needs to uh, go to the person who was in charge of managing the vaccine supply of India, because basically there was a laxity there. That after the first wave was over, there was belief that India has handled the problem really well, and we can relax with the vaccines. We can take 2 or 3 or 4 years to get everyone vaccinated, and the flu is not such a big problem. But now it is coming back. It is coming back with twice the pace, and it's coming back with twice the variants. So there are different kind of variants going on. You don't know how the vaccines interact with these variants. There are people who are getting both kinds of viruses. So now how these two viruses together interact, like the two variants together in the same person, with the vaccine, all of these are unknowns. And there is huge demand for vaccines. So there are cases where private hospitals are being rationed vaccines by 100 a day or 200 a day, when they could be administering lakhs of vaccines every day. So that is the kind of gap we have in deployment and supply. And India, which was to be the vaccine manufacturer of the world, can't even be vaccine manufacturer for Maharashtra. And that is the huge gap between what our policies promise and what our execution gives us. So I would like your thoughts on this. And who do you think is this a failure of? Is this a failure of the political leadership? Is this a failure of the bureaucracy? Is this a failure of the Indian private sector? Is this a failure of the Indian regulations that don't allow the private market to come into vaccine manufacturing? So, where do you think the blame goes?
Basically, uh, blame goes to all these. All these have played their part perfectly to cause this
Yeah.
sort of situation. Starting from the
Hmm.
political leadership, it has neglected after the first wave. Although it has been doing good, deploying vaccines, and recently, I think so. Today, Prime Minister Modi himself took the second shot of vaccine. But what India focuses presently is not on filling its own need. It rather feels it's important to supply 1 million doses of vaccine to Bangladesh. I don't know, maybe Bengal elections. I don't know. I'm not pointing finger. Or maybe to Brazil, for considering some BRICS development
So,
finance. I don't know.
actually, to just put the diplomacy in perspective, कि जितनी वैक्सीन हमने डोनेट किया ना, उतनी हम एक दिन में लगा देते हैं अपनी
लगा
पॉपुलेशन
देते
में.
हैं.
तो
Exactly.
तो
You
मतलब
know,
इतना एक्चुअली फर्क नहीं पड़ता. हमारी सप्लाई ही कम है. अगर हमारी सप्लाई ही 100 मिलियन वैक्सीन की है, तो उसमें से अगर हमने
sup-
1 मिलियन दे दी
supply
तो चलो कोई बात
supply is naturally low, but where now considering the number of cases that are rising, कल ही ऐसे 1,26,000 केस आए हैं. So we need to take into account, we need to save every life that matters. And quoting economic survey, that had been
नहीं.
right,
एक तो
that had been
एक
written.
चीज.
Yeah.
नहीं नहीं, सुनो. ये पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप में बात चल रही थी, तो आई थिंक बजट एंड इकोनॉमिक सर्वे इन इंडिया आर जस्ट टूल्स फॉर इलेक्शंस. सो
Exactly. So
दे आर
quoting this,
बेसिकली कि अभी इलेक्शंस होने वाले हैं, सेकंड वेव स्टार्ट नहीं हुई है, तो इसी को बोला कि ऐसे टाइम करना है कि सेकंड वेव से पहले इलेक्शन हो जाए. फिर बजट एग्जैक्टली इलेक्शन के पहले आना चाहिए, और इकोनॉमिक सर्वे उससे पहले बोलना 15% ग्रोथ होगी. 15% से 1% कम बोला तो देख लेना है. और अब सेकंड
and
वेव आ गई तो
economic
15% तो भी जाओ.
economic survey का पहला chapter was, livelihood versus life, saving lives over livelihood. Now I'm just considering ki what will be the preface of the next
Where do
economic
the
survey.
ethics go now?
What will be the preface of next economic survey, the first. So saving livelihood over lives, I don't know. you know so apart from
You
that,
never know. You never know.
I know.
With the way our government works, that is completely acceptable.
Yeah. So this is one issue, right? And second thing is, recently the High Court of Delhi has mentioned that even if you're traveling alone in car, you need to have a mask on, right? I don't know why there is no restrictions or such suggestions being put on the election process that is being occurring in the states of West Bengal or Assam, and I don't know, matlab, again. But matlab, honestly, I have a huge respect for Delhi High Court, even higher than Supreme Court for obvious reasons. So
Mhm.
that is one thing. Only two high courts, in fact, judiciary, Allahabad and Delhi High Court, according to me. Again, views are personal. Uh, they have sustained the change of time. So this is one thing. Right. Apart from that, vaccine diplomacy and production rate. What I fear now is, now the number of demand for vaccine is rising. So what I fear is now the efficacy of the vaccine production might reduce, owing to the laxity in the process that would require the clearing of or testing of vaccines. Let me just give you an example. And vaccines are also not 100% safe. Again, giving you an example. So this is a case of Bihar and PGI Rohtak again. So there were in Bihar there were 30 medical staffs that were injected with second dose of COVID, and they had completed their time. And after completing their time, after getting the course done of say around 50 days, that is one vaccine, first shot plus 4 weeks plus second shot plus 3 weeks, they were infected with COVID. And same goes on with the thing in PJ. So for me, the bigger problem is not uh, delivering of vaccines. For me, the bigger problem is that are your vaccines that you are delivering, are they now at the same level of standards that they were initially when they were being manufactured? Because I think so, owing to the increased demand, there's some laxity in the creation of these vaccines. Maybe the freezing or the storage, somewhere where the effectiveness of vaccine is getting decreased. So this is another issue in itself. But having said that, Pune has gone into a seven day lockdown. Chhattisgarh, Raipur has gone into a 7-day lockdown. So governments are again taking steps, but they cannot take steps at the same amount that were done last year, or say 3 or 4 months of total lockdown. That cannot be done. The only way that I see forward is uh, precautions. Uh, all the friends that I know, except for Raj Krishna and Vikas, have tested positive for COVID. So I think so, including you. So I think so that is one thing that needs to be taken into account, and this is really a serious problem. Some people have mild symptoms and some have been having very harsh symptoms. So this is one thing, and the main issue that I have with this vaccine thing is that it requires this process requires a 50 days process. This is a 50 days process. Right? The minimum time is 50 days. I'm talking about Covaxin. I'm not talking about Covishield, which requires an additional of 4 weeks. So this whole process is a minimum of a 50-day process, and even then you don't have doses ready to give to people. So this only delays this process. And with the delaying process comes chances of more infection and more morbidity. So these are some issues that needs to be taken into account. Providing more manufacturing is definitely the need, but apart from that, they should also take into consideration that while providing and deploying, enabling more industries for vaccine production, they should also take into account that they do not uh, flaw these uh, regulations that were put on the vaccine advocacy. So I think so. This is a combined effort of all the governments, bureaucrats together to make this problem.
या
these are
एंड आई थिंक इसके अंदर मतलब एक तो रिस्ट्रिक्शन है हमारी वैक्सीन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पे कि यू
hmm
कैन ओनली सेल टू द गवर्नमेंट.
hmm
Second is even when you're taking orders from the foreign country, that is also controlled by government. So
government,
there is no chance of private sector coming in and funding the supply of these vaccines.
right,
कि मतलब वहाँ पे 4 फैक्ट्री लग जाए एक ही जगह पे. And now when the government is asking the vaccine manufacturer to scale the supply, the vaccine manufacturer is asking for funding, and funding our government does not have. So if they decide to give funding, then they will debate between themselves in the state that who will give how much percentage. And in all the while, there will be people dying by the
right.
speed of tens every second.
Right, and there are already
So
talks of interstate disparity. You know, the BJP ruled state and non-BJP ruled state, non-BJP ruled state, alleging that they are not they are not getting the required doses of the vaccine by the center. So yeah, these things are bound to happen.
yeah, and this again comes back to the logic that there are very few places where disrupting the market actually does any good. And I don't know when the Indian state is going to take this lesson, but all the market restrictions that the Indian state since independence has brought in, whether it be the Essential Commodities Act or it be all these weird taxation things that we had before, or it be the protectionism, or it be this vaccine nationalism. Everything has basically hurted the Indian people, which kind of wider perspective the decision makers are not able to take. So we need to let go of the distrust of markets that we have, because if markets were allowed to operate right now, then the Serum Institute people would be manufacturing 10 times the number of vaccines, and
Exactly.
all the rich people in India would have already gotten vaccinated and paid for them, and there would be no problem of funding for new factories, and we could have donated the vaccines, we could have sold them to other countries, we could have fixed the fiscal deficit, and everything could have been done. But we sadly had to have the market restrictions, and once you have them, then you need to take responsibility for the market as well, which the state has failed to do. And right now, the Indian people are the ones who are going to suffer.
Right, right, right. So basically, I would like to take one more topic if we have time, and it is related to this
Yeah,
COVID only. So it is
we
investment
have like
opportunities in health.
2.5 minutes.
So I don't think so. I'll take it next time. So it is about investment
Okay.
opportunities in healthcare sector. But apart from that, I have a
Yeah.
very short topic. You know, it is about
Yeah.
the voting. I'll just
Mhm.
state it. So Election Commission of India had, along with IIT Madras students, held a session about remote voting facility, the possibility of remote voting facilities. Just pointing out, it can be used as a very good point. You know, and the one of the key points that came out from that was it needs to be a decentralized plan, decentralized, transparent process, and real time process. You know, if someone has voted, so even the election commission, the returning officer, everyone should be able to see that this person has specifically casted his vote online. It needs to be a secure process. You know, it has been done for multiple people. I think so for the people aged 70 and above, it has already started, apart from the ballot posting, so remote voting from your house. And the only suggestion, basically the only viable suggestion that came up for this, like which technology could be used, was the blockchain. You know, because
Of course.
it fits into all these dimensions. It is a decentralized process, it is a transparent process, and I think so it is one of the most secure process that has been
Yeah.
deployed till date. So this is just an fascinating point for all these blockchain anti-haters. So this technology is being mooted for remote elections as of
हाँ
now
हाँ, और
for voting only.
नंदन नीलेकानी ने बोल दिया कि डिजिटल रूपी इज गोइंग टू कम. सो डिजिटल रूपी भी आ जाएगा थोड़े दिनों में. सो
That is
बेसिकली इट विल
anyways,
बी.
that is not anyways going to happen, have so much personally so much value, because again it will be backed by RBI assets, monitored by RBI, tax pay karo. Blockchain, bro, blockchain, I would say doggy coin.
All right, all right. Yeah,
So
so
I think so
if
that's it for today.
election commission is like the only innovating body in India, so hopefully electronic voting वो पहले लाए थे, तो blockchain वाली voting भी ले आए, तो
election
सही
commission is
रहेगा
not
at least.
Election commission is not innovative, bro. Till the
Okay.
process of till the time it becomes transparent itself, how can we expect it to bring something that is so transparent? But I think so. I wish we had more election commission like TN Session. Right.
Right.
Okay.
So we
That's
have
it for
five
today. I
seconds
would
to
like
go.
to quote that Bihar thing. 1992.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.